So if you get a phone, meanwhile the phone is not switching on, for example, this mobile PCB is not switching on, so what is it you're gonna check? That is what I want you to understand. If you get a phone, meanwhile the phone is having wireless problem, what is the section that you're gonna check, and what are the components that you're gonna check? So these are the things in which I want you to understand in this video, because understanding it just on this mobile PCB right in front of me right now, you can understand it on any mobile PCB. Okay, so let me just highlight you about this, and if you are here and you don't understand anything, then I think you still need to watch some of my videos in which I will keep my playlist in the comment section and in the description, that you can see a lot of videos there that will help you understand this video more better. Okay, so if you get a phone, for example, you get this phone right in front of me and the phone is not switching on, then you try checking. I think you guys know how to use a multimeter. Then you try checking and you see that the phone is shorting. For example, if it's shorting directly from the battery connector, which is the battery connector right here, if the phone is fully shorting from the battery connector, which means that the positive and the negative battery connector is connected, so you will need to understand that that problem is coming from the power section of the mobile PCB, and that is why you will need to know the power section on that mobile PCB and know the components that are dealing with a high voltage. Full shorting are always caused by components which are dealing with high voltage, or maybe the exact voltage that comes out from the battery connector. So what are the components that can short a phone to be fully shorting to the extent that it will be shorting on this terminal? I want you to understand this. In this PCB, this is the power section of this PCB. When I talk about power section, I'm talking about the sections on a mobile PCB that distribute voltages, that takes the voltage from the charging port or from the battery connector, then distribute it to other parts of a mobile PCB. So this is the power section on this PCB, and if any component is shorting on this power section on this PCB, it will be very easy for the phone to fully short to the extent that it will short on this battery connector right here. So because I said that components on the power section, that if they are shorting they will fully short the PCB, does not mean that you just have to go on then remove anything that you see that is shorting because it's the power section. Okay, it depends on the motherboard, and the reason why I said so is because there are always some capacitors on a mobile PCB which are meant to be shorting, and they are shorting because of the low resistance between them caused by the CPU. Okay, I tell you what, yeah, I keep getting a lot of messages, guys messaging me, sending me pictures of capacitors on a mobile PCB that are shorting even when they keep removing them. Even when they have removed all the capacitors completely, then the part will still be shorting. What I want you to understand that you need to identify the CPU capacitors on the PCB. So like I said, on this PCB, this is the power section, but if these capacitors are shorting, I won't need to do anything about them, because these capacitors right here are CPU capacitors. You might be wondering why I know that these are the CPU capacitors. So if I test around here and these capacitors are shorting, I don't have any problem with that, I tell you what. But if I check on right here and any capacitor is shorting around here, then I will start removing the capacitor, testing and using my short killer to see the capacitor that is shorting. Okay, let me tell you what, let me show you how I get to know that these capacitors right here are the CPU capacitors. Okay, if I turn the motherboard on the other side right here, you will see that the CPU and the eMMC are right here. So if you check on this other side, you will see that you won't see any CPU capacitors around here, and the CPU capacitors are always a lot of them which are being mounted in one area. You understand? And any phone needs to have a CPU capacitor section. So because I did not see them right here, I check on this other side. I check on this other side, and I know that these are the CPU capacitors, and because of the way that they are being mounted, I know that these are the CPU capacitors, and they will always be shorting. So when you are checking shorting, try avoid touching this area on a mobile PCB. So if you check shorting on a mobile PCB and you see that the power section is fully shorting, meanwhile there is no component hitting on that mobile PCB, then you can use your short killer on the components that are shorting so that it will heat up the component that is fully shorting. So if it's shorting directly from the battery connector, you can use your short killer to do that, or you can use your multimeter to find the components that are shorting and start removing them one by one in case if you don't have a short killer. So I was talking about shorting on this power section, and that is what I will talk on right here. So the next thing that I want us to go for is wireless connection. So when I talk about wireless connection problem on a PCB, I'm talking about like no network, Bluetooth not on, Wi-Fi not turning on. So what is the section that you're gonna check, and what are the things that you're gonna check? So if this PC is having a wireless connection problem, maybe no network, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth having problems, then I'm going to come right here to this section. This is the wireless connection section on this PCB. So like I said, this is an highlight. I know that you guys know about these because I have talked about this on this video. So you can come right here and start checking everything that you want to check on right here, because right here this is the WTR, the main network IC of this PCB. You understand? So this main network IC has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi integrated in this IC in most phones, but in this phone, this IC right here only works with network. The phone has a different Bluetooth and Wi-Fi IC, in which I can show you on this other side. So for this phone, this is the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth IC, and I have a video on how you can identify all mobile ICs, so this will help you do that. So I just want you to understand the sections that you're gonna check when a phone is having some problems on a mobile PCB. And going back to shorting, so if your phone is shorting and you check the power section and you don't see any shorting around this place, it does not mean that the component that is shorting the phone must be on the power section. You might have to check the other sections on the PCB, then check the input of those sections, check the components that are receiving the input voltage that needs to power up those sections, like this network section right here. So if you look at this network section, then you see a capacitor which is big as this one. You will see that it deals with a high amount of voltage than any other component on this network section, which means that this bigger capacitor right here can still short the full PCB. Okay, I hope that is clear for you. So let me see what we're gonna talk about right here on this other side. Okay, cool. So you look at this other side, you will see that we have our charging IC right here, which is in the power section. This charging IC deals with a high amount of voltage, which is considered as a power section because it also distributes voltage like to the battery, then send charging signals to the CPU. You understand? So if you get a phone that is having sound problem, that is the most complicated problem that I see all these days that people are keep asking me questions about. Sound problem. You need to understand the sound section. You need to understand the sound IC and the sound section on a mobile PCB. Okay, so you look at this PCB. Let's say the PCB is having a sound problem. This is the sound section of this PCB. And if the phone is having a sound problem, you have to start checking everything on this PCB. because you see these two resistors right here, they are the last components that are sending the sound directly to your speaker. You understand? So the sound IC is the IC that generates the sound that you hear. So if this PCB is having a sound problem, then you can check everything from here, because as soon as it leaves this place, it's going to your speaker and going to your earphone jack. You understand? Okay, so I tell you what, I think this will be all about this video today. It's a lot. I never thought the video would be long this way. So make sure you comment if you have any questions, and like this video, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that before. Okay, cool, man.